Since Spacies is powered by the Ministry of Retro Gaming. Warning, strong language is used in this video.
Since Spacies.
G'day invaders and welcome to Since Spacies, and this is episode 2 of the Since Spacies Show, and we have got 3 guests, 2 from overseas, and I've got, as you can see, 1 here in the studio. But I'll start with, we've got Retr0 Joe. How you doing, matey?
How's it going, mate?
And we've also got Sorax Space once again. How you doing?
Hi Brian, thanks for having me back on.
And I'm joined here in the studio by Seb, who...
How you going, guys?
This is his first podcast, so be easy on him, guys.
Yeah, go gentle.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Retr0 Joe. We have intro questions that we put on for our guests. First console and first game that you played on it.
The first console I had, if you can call it a console, was a Acorn Electron.
Acorn? Did you say Acorn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's basically back in the 80s. We had the BBC, I think they called it BBC Micro, and it was like a school computer, but they made it like a home edition. And the first game I remember playing on it, I think it was called Buffalo Bill, and you're basically just shooting a bunch of cowboys. It's basically the first Red Dead Redemption 80s style.
So, okay. You still got it?
It's in the loft, but it doesn't actually work. But I have still got it.
My first game that I bought was on the SC3000 Packard or Pacer. But that's another story altogether. What's your favourite game of all time?
My favourite game of all time is Doom. I just love it. Like, a lot of people say video games make you violent, but that game actually chills me out. If I wanted to punch someone in the face, I would play that game and it would just chill me straight out. And I've even got books that I read. So, Doom for me.
The novel, a game that is about blowing people to giblets or smithereens, and they've got novels on that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that later. I can't imagine what they'll be writing about. What are you currently playing?
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, okay.
I fell into it.
How many chapters into that are you now?
I'm only on chapter 2. I'm hunting. I just like hunting things, like killing things.
There's a story?
Yeah. No, not really.
No, okay. And Sorax, I know we've already asked you these questions, and I'm not going to get you to go through, 20 of your favourite games of all time.
Yeah, Joey, by the way, you don't have to just name one. You know, Brian really loves it when you name more, so do your top 50. Just go ahead.
The editing was awesome on that one.
No, don't.
I'll have to do it by genre and top 10 and console. It's hard to pick.
That's the thing, when Brian asked me what my favourite game was, I just had to give a top 10, and he's never forgiven me for it since because he had to edit it all. It's just so hard to name one. Sorry, Brian.
Well, we've already got your first console and your favourite game, or games in your case, of all time. I was going to ask you, what are you currently playing at the moment?
There's this game that's just come out. It's called Forklift Simulator. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Is there nothing?
No,
is there anything that is not simulated now?
No, I was joking. It's Shenmue. It's Shenmue. I'm still playing Shenmue. I think I mentioned it last time. I was on one of the other podcasts. I was still playing Shenmue.
Do you know what? I actually thought for a moment, and you were being serious, that there was a forklift simulator game. But now that you mention it, okay, Shenmue 1. So
I have to look it up. Maybe there is a forklift simulator, but it wouldn't be pretty much Shenmue from my experience at the moment. You know, I thought you'd be using a forklift one day, and then it's like 3 or 4 days in a row. You have to do a shift at a forklift place, and I have to wait for the bus. It's like another day at work, because when I come home from work, I want to relax and play a game. I don't want to be waiting for a bus and then have to get on time to work and work a.
But those
Shenmue.
those forklift sections in that game are actually quite I don't know, relaxing, the chillax. You're just concentrating on moving the crate from to warehouse 18 or whatever it was, or 8. That was a really satisfying part of the game. I don't know why. It was just mundane and boring, but I got to move this. I got to shift these crates. Get out of the way. That damn cat's in the way. Get out of the way.
Yeah, I don't know why it was such a big part of the game. I wouldn't mind if it was just like one section of the game, but it seems to recur. It didn't need to repeat. Like it could have been like accessible by like the forklift races. So if you could have spoke to someone and then just done a race whenever you felt like it, that would have been good. Because like it forces you to do it every day. But it's still an enjoyable game. I'm enjoying it.
What can I say? Yu Suzuki was obsessed with forklifts. He was just wanting that in there. He had an intimate experience with a forklift, and it had to be in the final release. And Seb, first console of all time?
Mine was the Amiga. I remember playing it. My dad used to pull it out when I was younger. I think I was maybe about 4. And we used to play. I used to play Xevious on it like all the time. It was the only game I could play.
Nice shooter.
Yeah, only game I could play.
I think it was one of the first games that featured where you could actually shoot the ground.
Yeah, it has like a little crosshair as well.
Yeah, I remember that. And favorite game of all time?
For me, Kingdom Hearts, hands down. That's my favorite game of all time.
I'll let you. He's been eyeing this off.
I told him I'm gonna steal it. It's mine. It's coming home. But yeah, no, definitely would have to be Kingdom Hearts.
And what are you currently playing at the moment? You're not playing Monster Hunter, which you should be.
Yeah, no, I'm not playing that.
I bought that game specifically because you told me to, and it's just sat back there.
We will play it, I promise. We will play it. But at the moment, I'm playing Diablo 3 on the Switch. I picked that up the other day.
Okay.
So not very far.
Another time sink.
Yeah. But no, I'm not too far into it. I'm literally only at like the first few missions. So.
What's one game that you've got at the moment where it's just so daunting a task that you know you want to do it, but it's just like
Red Dead Redemption. I'm only at the end of the first chapter, I think, because I just keep running off doing all the side stuff. So I think I'm at like the first or second chapter.
Okay.
And I go to play it, and I'm just like, man, I don't have time for this right now.
It is very slow and it kind of pushes you away because of that, I think. But I've got a guy at my work. He's keeps telling me, nah, you got to get into it. It gets really good. It gets really good. And I'm like, okay, I'll believe you. I'm only up to chapter 2
I'm sure
myself.
it does, but yeah.
Can we just speed this along a bit? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to just switch over. We have made a little bit of a change here to the show. So previously I would ask 3 questions and we would discuss that, but in episode 1 I had video questions that were put forward to me in the Twitter sphere, and that was my favorite part of episode 1, so we are going to do that again. So I'm going to play these questions up and get you guys to respond. So we're going to start off with the very first one, and this is from Game in Telford. Shout out to Steve. Let's watch this.
Yeah, that one. Oh, hello. Hello there, Spacies. How's it going, mate? You alright? Steve here from Game Telford. What I want to know is, my first console / computer was the 48K Spectrum. Still the best of all time. But what were your guests' first console / computer? They don't say 48K Spectrum. They're wrong anyway. Ta-ra!
Yeah, well, basically, I did answer it because that's what I mentioned before. It was called home computers, the Acorn Electron. But I'll answer it in a different way because that wasn't the first game I actually played on the home computer, so I'll answer that one. My first game I ever played on the home computer was my next door neighbours, and that was on the Commodore 64, and it was actually Postman Pat. And honestly though, if you watch it, the bare bones of it is just basically GTA 1, but you can't run over people.
Grand Theft Auto Pat Edition. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Why hasn't anybody thought of this?
That is just waiting to be satire. Someone's got to do that.
I don't think GTA mod that. I don't think we've done one yet. Postman Pat. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. It goes postal, literally. Like.
They had the Fireman Sam version as well, which was more or less the same game, but they changed the sprites to a fire engine. So, looking at
I know
that as well.
Sorax did a Bob the Builder Let's Play, or look at Bob the Builder. That
review wasn't very good.
Yeah, I was going to say that looked tedious. But what about you, Sorax? Maybe a little more detail about, maybe not your first, but your second console, maybe?
My first console, just to quickly answer, that was the Mega Drive, which I answered in a previous podcast, my first one, the Mega Drive, which I got from my cousin, just inherited it from him. My second console was actually the PlayStation 1, I think, so I pretty much jumped from Mega Drive to PS1. And the reason I jumped from the PS1, believe it or not, was I went round my friend's house, and he had a PlayStation 1, and can you guess what game was playing at the time that made me want to buy a PlayStation 1?
Trying to think of something really obscure. Not Destruction Derby.
Die Hard Trilogy.
Which one? Sorry. Die Hard Trilogy. Yeah.
That's right. It wasn't too bad. You got 3 games in one there. I've got it. That's pretty good. No, it was, to be honest, it was Bubsy 3D.
No.
And that is one of the worst games I've ever played. At the time, yeah, I know, it's
And that
unbelievable.
sold you on the concept of buying a PlayStation.
Yeah, because, right, you got to picture it, right? I was used to a Mega Drive, and I saw the graphics, and obviously, you know, like the graphics like Sonic, they're brilliant, really colourful and stuff. When I walked into someone's room, because this is like before we had the internet and stuff, and they had the PlayStation 1 sitting there, and I saw these 3D graphics on the screen, and this open world, I was like, wow, this is fantastic, you know, 3D, wow. And I didn't see much of the game. I guess if I saw more than 10 minutes, I wouldn't have wanted a PlayStation.
So, Bubsy 3D, for those of you who don't know, is notoriously worst. It's just really just poor.
Really good.
But the guys that developed that later went on to do something really epic and cool, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I will put a graphic up later about what it was. But yeah, they surprised everyone and came out with a absolute corker of a game later on down the track. So you never know which company will let you down one minute and surprise you the next. What about you? We already discussed your first was the Amiga, but what was the first console you owned yourself?
Mine would be the PS1 as well. That was
Okay,
so we jumped straight from the Amiga, skipped everything else, went straight to a PS1, and I believe the first game I ever played on that was a game called Skull Monkeys. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but it's like a claymation sort of platformer game. It's awesome. It's very obscure.
Okay.
Nobody's ever really heard of it, but it's a cool.
I kind of remember that Skull Monkeys.
Skull Monkeys, yeah. You can't find it anywhere. You tried looking for it. It's impossible.
That's probably going to be one that goes for a bit on eBay, I'd say, because it's just so hard to find.
It's expensive, yeah.
Okay.
But it's a great game.
I think I do remember someone talking about that on YouTube one day. I'll have to look into it a little more. For me, my first console was the Sega SC3000 computer, but the next one after that was Mega Drive. Yeah, so I had in my video, the last video I put out, I showed off my PAL edition of the Mega Drive, but that wasn't my actual first Mega Drive. I had mine imported from Japan before the official release, and I really regret not having that box and that console still, because I think that the Japanese release just looked cooler than the PAL one. I still remember when I saw the Mega Drive logo that they were going to go with in PAL regions. I was disappointed that we weren't going to go with the red-green logo that the Japanese were getting. But I remember seeing the very first TV commercial for the Mega Drive in Australia, and it was like, okay, maybe this will work. It was a really cool commercial. Alright, well, that's the first question out of the way. We're going to go into the second one, and this is from Savage Gaming Show.
Hey, it's Savage here from the Savage Gaming Show. Now, last time you had an amazing question from the top loader, which was, who has the best hat? And it got me thinking. And with Brian showcasing his amazing Sonic the Hedgehog mask, I started thinking about masks too. So, my question for you is, who is your favorite video game character that wears a mask?
First of all, I've got a question for Savage Gamer. I've watched a couple of his videos. They're really good, but I've just got a question for you. Does your voice hurt after recording your videos? Because
I can't imagine how long he would do that for before he has to get reach for a strepsil or or water.
Because even reading my scripts, like my voice hurts, but doing that voice, that must hurt straight away. I don't know how he does it. They're good stuff. The only characters that I can think of that wear masks are like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat.
Is it a mask?
It's a mask, isn't it? Because he takes it off and then it's just like a skull.
Yeah. Okay.
So there isn't many, is there? I mean, does Crash?
I'm really
I was in a Crash Bandicoot.
Splatterhouse.
I've got a good one. You guys go first, and I'll come up with mine in a second.
My favourite Splatterhouse.
Yeah. I'll give you that. That's a. I don't know. I found the Splatterhouse series a bit too slow. I would have loved the faster paced version of that game, but it's a cool character. Jason from Friday the 13th. That's all you think of when you see those games. Did you see the?
You played the new one.
Did you see the NES version of that game? It was like a deformed version, super deformed. Yeah, SD version. No, okay. You got one, Seb?
I don't know, but does Crash Bandicoot count? I mean, he sort of wears a mask.
No, he doesn't.
He does when you get the 3 boxes. He puts the mask on. That's the only character that I can think of from my memory.
That was the first thing. That was the very first thing that came to my mind. Was a Crash Bandicoot, the Aku, I think it's called. That was the first thing.
It's the only game I can recall.
Here's something that will shock a lot of people. I've never actually played Crash Bandicoot. Didn't interest me.
Wow.
The character just looks mental. Just didn't interest me one bit. It was just like.
Well, don't worry, you can get a PlayStation Classic. Oh no, sorry.
Or a mini.
It's on that.
My suggestion for best character with a mask, Kid Chameleon on the Mega Drive. That's probably the only one that I can think, and it's an integral part of the gameplay mechanic is that you wear a different mask and you become a different character with different abilities. So yeah, that's probably my best one that I can come up with. But nah, thanks for the cool question there, Savage. Hope the voice gets better. So I'm gonna do the next question.
Hi, I'm Miao Tei Ching
Max Inventory.
of the Bit War Veterans, and we have a question for you.
With the increase and improvement of cell phone and tablet technology, will there be any place in the future for handheld consoles anymore? Like the 3DS or the PS Vita?
I think there are room for both, but it's certainly dwindled down the handheld gaming market, I would say. I guess you have to just look at the differences between the two. I mean, me personally, I can't really get into mobile games. I mean, I like buttons, and all smartphones, they don't have buttons. And I downloaded the Sonic the Hedgehog thing because I think it was free on smartphones. So I tried it. Cannot do the touchscreen thing at all. I have to have buttons. So that's one thing handheld consoles always have over mobile gaming.
That is a generational thing. I've got a kid up here, a neighbour. He grabbed the phone and he was playing this platform game, and he's blitzing it. And I said, he gave me it was a section he couldn't get past it, and he said, "Can you do it?" I can't use touchscreen controls. I'll fling that. if you give me a game with touchscreen controls, I won't go near it. But he was all over it, and I figured it's a generational thing that kids are getting used to controlling the game with touchscreen. I just don't see how you can do it. There was a controller for the Mega Drive released in the 90s that had a touchpad instead of a D-pad, and it was just. That's the earliest example I can think of touch screen style controller, and it was just terrible because it couldn't detect left, right properly. It would always go diagonal, down, diagonal, up. It just wasn't accurate enough. What's your experience been with touchscreen controls? Anyone? You?
I'm not a huge fan of them, to be perfectly honest. Like every time I've ever tried to play a game with them, I just can't seem to get it right. Exactly what you're saying. The controls just don't feel responsive, I guess.
They're not precise enough, no.
Yeah, so I mean, having the actual controller in my hand with the buttons, it's just, yeah. I mean, I've even tried playing games like Fortnite and PUBG on the iOS, and it's not the same. It's it's not the same.
If there was some sort of standard add-on for a phone, but the problem with that is that there's no standard size phone. So you can get maybe an adjustable left and right thing that snaps into place, like Switch, that is actually a physical button control layout. But the problem with that is that with Android, there's no one company except Google that own Android. Maybe it's up to Google to come out with a standard controller for mobile phones. Maybe that's what we need for mobile phones to become more widely accepted amongst traditional gamers or retro gamers. Joe, you got a thought on this?
Yeah, I've got one of them Hyperkin Game Boys where you actually slip your phone into it and you play it like an actual Game Boy, and you put a cartridge in the back of it. It's pretty cool. It's if you've got an Android phone, it's worth getting, because you don't have to, like put batteries in it or whatever.
So you'd definitely rate that as something you should, if anyone's into retro gaming and they're wanting to use their phone to do that, that's something worth getting?
I would say so. I think it's an untapped market. I think, especially as they play the old games on, I think that's where they should be going with it. But like you were saying about the responsive, I remember playing GTA 3, I think it was. Was it Liberty City Stories?
Yep.
And they've got like the analog things in the corners, and it just hurts your thumbs. It just you just can't grasp it.
I've got another aspect to this as well. I don't want to be using my mobile phone for gaming because I want my phone to be the phone. I don't want to waste the battery on it playing a game, and then you will get stuck into, it might be a really cool game, but when you finish playing it, you got 30% left on your battery, and you still got 8 hours of your day to go. So I'm not a fan of using the phone, except to, it's funny, most people have a phone, they don't actually make calls these days, they just use it for Facebook or Twitter. But I'm not a fan of mobile gaming. It will take something revolutionary for me to change my mind on that personally.
I think we might be there with I think Apple showed a new tech demo of their new iPad that's coming out in the future, and I think it actually runs better than an Xbox X. It runs really, really well, and I think that is going to be the future for handheld. It might not be the joysticks that we want, but I think with regards to graphics and stuff like that, I think they're going to be touching up on that in the future.
Yeah, but that'd be like having a Ferrari that you can't drive because the steering's crap. Like, I'm not really sold on it unless Apple can. Again, it comes down to having either Apple or Google come out with a standard controller that everyone can get on board and say that these are the buttons that the developers can use in their game. Because
just like the Switch. That's what you want, isn't it?
Exactly. There was a company, Huawei. They came out with a mobile phone that kind of was in the direction that I was talking about. But the problem with their one is that they only offer a joystick on the left, but it was like half a Switch. They didn't come up with buttons on the right. It was like, you were so close, guys. You almost had what I was after, but you're not quite there.
It's like they've tried it before. Like if you remember the N-Gage, remember the phone, the N-Gage?
Oh my god, the side talking,
horrendous.
The clam talking. Did you remember that?
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Like I don't know.
Actually had to hold the phone like that to your head to talk. That was just
the N-Gage was terrible.
That's the thing. I think with the touchscreen controls, I think it is, as you say, a generational thing. Whereas I see, like my little cousins, they can easily play touchscreen controls, and as I say, I tried to play Sonic and I just couldn't without buttons. But I think there's more aspects of mobile games which I don't like the fact that most of them seem to always need to be connected online. And I don't like that. I like to be able to switch off the internet. I like to be able to play a handheld console just in my bedroom just without the internet on. And some say, it's handy just to have the one device in your pocket and you can go on the train or whatever. My train is in a tunnel, so I cannot play this online game. There's no Wi-Fi in these tunnels yet. I know they're working on it. I think in London at the moment to get internet in the tunnels, but at the moment we don't have it, so I can't actually play any of these games at the moment. And I just hate that aspect of having to be online in these mobile games. And then obviously that brings in the microtransactions and all that sort of thing, which I hate.
We're moving on to another topic, which is online gaming. I'm not.
But it's a big part of mobile games, and it's their main funding because a lot of them are freemium games. So.
Yeah. And I think when it also another side topic is online gaming. Fallout 76, we can see what's happening with that at the moment, that they threw all their eggs into one basket, being that there are no NPCs at all, that every character is a human, except they forgot the fact that humans are buttheads when they come online. They don't care about other players.
Yeah, and these maps are massive. Only allow 20
players. How in hell did they ever think that was going to work? I mean, I watched Angry Joe's video game review on it, and he's playing it while some kid is in the background getting told to tidy up his room. You can hear the mum in the background, and then you can hear some other guy yelling, and there's another guy snoring in the background. I'm like, this is not what I came on board for. I don't want to hear these other people. So yeah, not a fan of online gaming. It has its. There are times when it works, but forcing you into the online gaming, it should be an option. It should be a choice. All right, we're going to go into the next question. Try and get these questions get through quicker. Sorry, I've got too many mouses here. So this next one's from Top Loader.
Okay, so I was reading an article the other day about the N64 Mini that might be coming out. So I was actually reading the comment section, and I was actually quite surprised to hear that half of the people were divided on the controller. Now, for me personally, the N64 has not aged that well. And the hero of the N64, what makes it so unique and actually playable today, is the controller. Ironic or what? Because people now thinking that the controller is what brings the system down. Can you believe that? I couldn't believe it. When I was reading, I could not believe it. So here I am, asking the question, do you believe that? What do you think? Me personally, obviously, I love the N64 controller. Me personally, I can only play Mario 64 with this controller. I don't like using the conventional controllers for playing N64 Mario. Okay, I said that backwards, my apologies, but you know what? I'm talking really fast, okay? So the N64 controller for me is the hero of the system. What do you guys actually think? Do you think it's the hero of the system? Or do you think it brings the N64 down? But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you know what? We all know the real reasons why we're here. The fucking NetSapper owns them all, bitches. Okay, you're still here, sorry. Okay, I'm out.
I don't know, Nintendo are quite good at controllers usually, but that one is just, that's horrendous to me. I don't know, did Top Loader say he liked it?
He liked it. He says that he said that it's the hero of the system.
I think it's one of the worst aspects of the system. I cannot stand that. I've got a controller and it's one of the worst controllers I've ever held. It just, I don't know who held that and Nintendo thought this is great. I don't know how it got past even the testing stage. I really don't like the controllers.
Joe, what about you?
Like we were saying earlier before we were recording, when you're holding it, you sometimes forget the other half of the pad's even there.
Yeah, I know,
especially when you're playing Mario Kart, because it works well with Mario Kart because you've got the button at the back what you press to shoot. But the D-pad is just nothingness. It didn't even work on Mario Kart, I don't even think.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They got that Z.
They got the Z button at the back.
Sorry, Z. The Z. They got that in the middle of the back.
I think that's why it worked well with this. I think it was called Star Fox, Lilac Wars. You know, any flying games, it were great because of it was like a joystick in a way, and you had your shooting button on the back. But other than that, it's all right. And it gets me onto the GameCube controller. Then, you know, like the GameCube controller, it's brilliant to hold in your hands, but I don't know what the hell them buttons are about. The layout. They've got the layout wrong.
Why they had to come forward with this controller? I won't call it a broken controller. It's an unnecessary controller. It's just Nintendo again being flamboyant for the sake of being flamboyant. There was no need for this controller to be like this.
And every controller I had, the joystick as well went really wobbly, and I hated that. I absolutely hated it.
But I've never really been big into the Nintendo 64 anyway, so I'm probably the worst or the last person you should ask. But I only picked this up because, you know, come on, look at it. But I've got only a handful of games. I've got Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and I'm yet to get Mario 64. I want to get that for this system, but it's not a system that I have really, emotional ties to at all. It's just got Pikachu. I came here for Pikachu. That was it. But yeah, thanks Top Loader for that one. He'll also be featuring on episode 3. He's got another question coming up for that one as well. We're going to move on to Pixels Limited. He's got a question for us. Wrong mouse. I've got two laptops going here, guys. It's
sort your stuff out, bro.
It's getting all confusing. Let's go to the question.
G'day Brian, it's Samuel Victor from Pixels Limited here. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Last time I had a blast, and hi to all your guests this time. I'm sure it's going to be a great show. Really looking forward to watching it. My question is, in the last 18 months or so, we've seen Nintendo release the NES Mini and the SNES Mini. And of course, Sony does what Nintendo also does. And they're going to be releasing this Christmas a small mini version of this, the original PlayStation. Great console, loads of great games. But the 20 games that they've announced for being on the mini console are a little confusing to say the least, with some heavy hitters missing, like Tomb Raider, Spyro the Dragon, Wipeout, and Crash Bandicoot, of course. So my question for your panel is, will you be picking up a PlayStation Classic Mini? And if you will, what are the games that you will be hoping that you can hack and add to the console, which are missing from the current lineup? Have a great show, guys. Nice one.
You got thoughts on your...
I don't know. He's
Bubsy 3D.
Yeah, Bubsy's going on there for sure.
Bubsy 3D is a console seller. I proved it.
I don't know. I don't think I'll be picking one up myself, just because I had a look at the roster, and he does have a point. There's a lot of games on there that should be on there that aren't on there. I mean, I can understand why the likes of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot aren't on there, because they've just remastered those.
No, I don't buy into that. That should be more of a reason to have that on the console, because those people who bought the remastered version might want to go back and have a look to see how it originally looked and played. But
I don't know. I feel like they're just doing it to appeal to the masses and not to the
Symphony of the Night. Someone's got to say it. Symphony of the Night. Why isn't that on that list? That's like
Final Fantasy 8's not even on it, is there? I'm pretty sure it's not.
No, they did 7.
Yeah, it's like 8 was good, 9 was good. There's tons of games on there that.
I'd put 9 over 8.
Wild 9 was a favourite game of mine. Yeah. That's not even on there.
Destruction Derby's on there though, isn't it?
I'm not too sure.
I know, it is such an unmemorable list that they've got that I've just really not followed it, because as soon as I saw the list that they were coming up with, is this bringing a bigger question? Is Nintendo a company that's just got more big hits behind them than Sony have, or Sony PlayStation has? Is that what the problem is, or is it just that...
The problem is it's a poor list. I mean, I think that's another discussion. They maybe Nintendo do, but it's just such a poor list. I mean, we've already spoke about some missing off: Crash Bandicoot, Spyro. Yeah, they might have remastered it, but I get your point, Brian, that it's called the PlayStation Classic. It's meant to celebrate an anniversary of PlayStation, and to me, it just seems like a bit of a cash grab, and a bit of a half-assed cash grab of that. Whereas games like Tomb Raider, why is that not on there? It's Lara Croft is one of the PlayStation mascots. When you think of PlayStation, that is one of the first names that will come up. It isn't on the PlayStation Classic. To me, it's inexcusable.
Which is kind of odd that Tomb Raider is associated with PlayStation, because it was on Saturn as well.
Yeah, it was.
That's kind of odd. And the Saturn version holds up all right, considering what it was up against. But I've still got to check to see if Destruction Derby was on there. But there is a ton of other games.
I think it was.
It was?
Yeah, I think it was.
But Wipeout should have been on there.
Yeah, Wipeout was another one.
For me, that was one game that made me look at the PlayStation and stand up and think, okay, these guys are serious. This console is not just for kids. This is a game that's coming out with a proper soundtrack by, with artists like Prodigy. Maybe that's what they're using as an excuse for it not being having those games on there. Like they said that Gran Turismo, there was licensing issues. I don't buy into that though, because they got those games are being sold on the PSN network now, so it couldn't be that hard of an issue for them to work past if they're still selling it on their PSN shop. There must be some way that they could have got that passed over the line.
And that's another argument. I don't know why people just don't go on the PSN shop and just download the games they actually want in HD. Maybe in I don't know.
We had a PlayStation Classic. It was called the Vita TV.
Yeah.
That thing was perfect. It was everything that this console could do, but better. And the interface. Have you seen the interface for this PlayStation Mini or Classic? It's shocking. It's terrible. I mean, the Nintendo one isn't all that great, but at least they're putting a bit of an effort in there. But it's just, it looks like a really bad PlayStation, original PlayStation. Yeah.
And when you buy Mega Drive Classic games and stuff like that, they've got like border options and they've got scan line options and all of that. None of this is on there. They could have easily done that. Give a scan line option, just a filter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And filters. 9 of the 20 games are 50 hertz and not 60 hertz. They're using the PAL version, which is okay by me because I'm used to the crap frame rate. But,
yeah, and that was another thing. These are the European releases, the PAL ones, so they're slower.
Yeah, they won't give us the box art. They'll be lazy with that, but they'll give us the versions. It's a really half-assed job, in my opinion.
So, Joe, will you be buying one?
I may have been interested if it had more 2-player games on there. Games like Overboard. The unsung heroes of that console. The thing is, what drives me more to the N64 Mini is if it's got the 4-player on it, because that would bring people in the front room playing the games again. But I really wanted games like you said, Symphony of the Night, because they're like £80 over here, and that's going to be the price of a console. Games like Tomba, or was it Tomba in the States,
yes,
maybe?
Yeah.
Klonoa is another. I would like to have seen. It's expensive.
Yeah, that's another one, like £100. I think you're paying for that over here, and there's a lot of great games for the PlayStation, but they've just gone for all the greatest hits, but the popular ones, if you know what I mean. I think if you look at it and you think it's got Resident Evil on it, it's got Metal Gear Solid on it, it's got Final Fantasy VII. In people's eyes, they're the top 3 games on that system, but at the same time, they are pretty much 1-player games as well. And it doesn't interest me anyway, because I've got all the games pretty much for the original. So I'm going to stick with my PS1 Mini, which is the Enjoy pack.
So can you hold
and
it
it's
up
got
again?
over a total of 59 games on it.
Can you hold that up again? Because it didn't come out clear. What is that?
It was like an Argos for about a tenner. I remember.
Do you have a video about that at all?
I've not done one yet, but it actually had the actual discs in it, a cardboard.
They play like vinyls, don't they, or something?
No, all that it does, they don't actually play. They've just got little buttons. So the big disc will push down one button and it play the games. And the middle disc.
Hokey. This looks so hokey. It deserves a video, matey.
Look at the controllers. They're just like a mixture between the N64.
And that's something we haven't discussed, even though you're bringing up this sideshow freak thing going on here. The controller is not the DualShock.
But that was the standard PlayStation controller.
I know that, but since they released the original PlayStation, they enhanced it with a proper controller, and which is one that became the standard after that.
That's true.
And
yeah.
Like you show kids now the original PlayStation controller, they look at it and go, "Where's the analog sticks?" They don't understand the fact that originally the PlayStation didn't have that.
Yeah.
It was a glorified Super Nintendo that happened to have.
Ape Escape would have been a good game on there, but without the analog controller, Ape Escape doesn't exist.
Well, that was the pioneer for that game, wasn't it? It came out with the DualShock. It's like, here's the DualShock and here's a game that goes with it. So
yes.
Yeah.
Dear. All right, well, I think it's not getting a lot of votes here.
No.
And I think we'll just move on. But no, thanks for the question there. We are going to now... Oops. Did it again. Wrong. Okay, so we have got a question here from Flam. I can't remember his name, but the interesting thing about this question is he's recorded this on a 2DS. Get ready.
Hello, this is Liam from Flame Studios, and sorry for the lag. But here's my question. You know about PlayStation leaving the E3 2019 event, right? I think it was 2 weeks ago or last week. Would you say there's something suspicious going on from the gaming world, especially about the fact that Xbox decided to leave the EGX event that's happened last month? Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, Morg are taking over. That's the only suspicious thing that's happening.
Morg are taking over. There's no doubt.
But on the whole thing, I just think it's just following a trend that a lot of companies are doing now, which is they'd rather control their own thing rather than go to E3s and things like that. I think in Sony's case, they're heavily rumoured, if not almost confirmed, from the really strong rumours they're developing the PS5 or whatever the next console is going to be called. And they don't have a lot to. I think they actually made a statement that we don't have a lot to show right now at all. So it would be a disappointing E3, to not be able to show anything. So it just makes sense. I mean, I don't know how much these things cost, but I'm sure they're saving a lot of money by not going. And if they don't have anything to show, it just makes sense. It's like Nintendo now with their Nintendo Directs, they just do it online and they save a lot of money, just do it through YouTube. So it's the money savers.
I think there's two aspects to this. You've got Nintendo, for example, who have set the bar for this by pulling out of these events and having full control over their direct, because they realized that, and this is one of the rare occasions where Nintendo have actually been kind of at the forefront of how to handle announcements, etc. Usually Nintendo are not usually that savvy when it comes to the modern environment when it comes to marketing, but they have created their Nintendo Directs and they get, like I said, full control of how that plays out. There's no they've had experiences in the past with E3 where it's gone like a train wreck and it's gone wrong. Wii Music is the best example. I just need to... and also Skyward Sword, was it? Or no, where he tried to show off the controls and Miyamoto couldn't get it to work. So there's that aspect. They want full control of their own environment. I don't think that's totally what it's about. I think they're planning for the next generation. You've got Xbox with Scarlet, which is the next Xbox coming out. They're buying up companies left, right, and center. They are probably going to. You're going to see Xbox One come down to a bit of a halt now, or the big announcements, and it's all going to be about the next console. I think we are at the beginning of the next console generation when it comes to prepping. They're just keeping quiet because they've got nothing to announce now, I don't think, for the current generation. So I think you're right there, Sorax. Joe, do you have a take on this?
Unless they're making their own, like like a Sony or Xbox own thing, because that would sort of make sense. With E3 and the EGX, I've been to EGX a few times, but they don't have them stand-up things, where they're on the stage talking about the game. At EGX, it is literally just walking around playing the new games. So if you ever go to EGX, I always recommend go for one day, because if you go for the full 3 days, you're not going to see talks and stuff like that. You're just walking about playing new games. And I would love to go to E3 just to sit there and watch or whatever, but I think I watched the conference about that new is it Diablo game, when they were asking them questions, and they basically just bombed them.
I'm kind of sick in this way. I like watching the E3 fails. It's kind of half the reason why I watch E3 is to see what's going to be the fail for this current year. And it doesn't need to be. You do feel sorry for, like, for example, there was independents that got up and started talking about their game. And I think it was a lady, she stopped her in the middle of a sentence. She said, sorry, I really am nervous. And she just was honest and told people on the stage that she's nervous and never done anything like this before. And it kind of made everyone think, feel pity for her and want to listen to her more. So it's a hard thing to do, getting up in front of people. I've never really done it often, and I'm hopeless in in front of a crowd of 50 people. I'd rather stand here in front of a camera in my room than get up in front of on a stage. I couldn't do it. But I think to answer the question, no, I don't think there's anything really sinister or anything going on. I think this is just all strategy and tactics going on. It's about what they've got under their belt, what cards they've got to show, and Sony are pretty much just, I think, admitting by not admitting it that they don't really have anything to show at this point in time.
I'm frightened though, well, not frightened, but a bit concerned that I think E3 will die out eventually. Because I think more and more people are like Nintendo, just doing their own thing and taking their own control, which is a shame because, as you say, there's lots of funny E3 memories. But even the joking aside, it's nice to have all of the competitors in the same room. It's like when you have boxers and they do their fighting talk and they're in the same room with each other. It'll be different. Well, it won't be as good if they're in completely separate locations and they're talking to each other. You know, I love that competition where they're in the same room, which will be lost with E3 gone. I hope it doesn't, but I fear that it will be gone soon.
Yeah, some of the best stories in video game culture have come from not just E3, but before that, CES. Atari yelling at Nintendo because Nintendo gave the rights to Donkey Kong without them realizing it to Coleco or someone else, and then they blew up in the middle of the floor for everyone to see. That's gold. You can't buy that. You know what I mean? Like that's just an experience that we probably won't get because it's become more structured. It's become more corporate-like, and it's a shame that it's lost its cowboyness. The industry, and yeah, I think that's just something we've got to get used to. I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, so this is from Chris. From Grumpy Retro Gamers, and a big congratulations to Grumpy Retro Gamers. They hit 1,000 subscribers. So this is Chris from Grumpy.
Hey, what's up, Brian? It's Chris from GRG. I've got a question for you and your mates on the show. If you had to choose, would you rather play nothing but Atari's E.T. for the rest of your life, or get your head panned in every second Friday outside a pub in a car park by a group of 9 thugs? Which one is it? Got to choose one. Unlucky, mate.
I'd go with getting my head kicked in, to be perfectly honest.
I prefer to kick in because at least I'm in with a chance.
E.T.'s
Has anyone here played E.T. On Atari 2600?
I don't need to play it.
Yeah, I got it recently, just because you just have to buy it. For a games collector, you just have to buy it. And you do. You just have to. You have to own it, don't you? It's just one of them games you just have to own, I think. And I don't think it's as bad as people say. It's awful, but it's not as. I think I've probably played worse games. So I'll probably play some life, but I would hate both, to answer your question.
So I do have a story behind this, and I don't blame the programmer, I blame the corporation at the time. Atari were just greedy, and I don't know what they were thinking when they bought into this. So they paid millions to get the rights to the ET license, and it was calculated later that in order to make a profit, they would have had to have sold more copies of the game than Atari consoles that existed at the time. It was never going to be a profitable venture. It was just ludicrous from the start. And I played it much later. I didn't play it in 82, probably 86 or 7, and I didn't know anything about the console crash or anything like that. We were totally oblivious to all that. And I was at a mate's place. We were going through a whole stack of Atari 2600 games that he had, and most of the games were playable, most of them were fun, but I came across E.T. and I remember seeing it in its shiny silver packaging thinking, oh, this looks good. So plugged it in, started to play it, didn't know what I was doing. Falling in pits, getting out of a pit, falling in another pit, there was no sort of explanation as to what was going on. Yes, you did have to read the manual, but if a game requires you to have to read the instruction manual to get any kind of enjoyment out of it, then the game is broken. And I ripped that game out of the console and flung it. This is in my mate's place, it's not even my copy. Flung it across the room, smashed into bits across the room, hit the wall, and he just looked at me, what the hell did you do that for? And I said, mate, I've just done you a favour.
I never played it, but I mean, I've seen enough videos on it to know that it's just...
Oh, it's not... Okay, so I know that there's a lot of things that that go around on YouTube because it's cool to do, and you know, people bagging out this game or that game. But that is a game that is definitely entitled or worthy of its title of being an
It's up there
atrocious
with
game.
Bubsy. It's up there with
Bubsy
Bubsy.
3D that is, yeah, that should
Well,
still on.
Sorry,
Worst game I've ever
Sorax.
played. Fazby
You
3D.
need to play ET for the PS1. That is equally just as bad as
ET for the PS1.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was a
I've-
rare.
Is there
It is
another
really
ET
bad.
game? Someone touched ET license again, did they?
Yeah, it was on, and there was, as Joe was saying, there was another game on PS1 I've got. It's awful. It might even be, I don't know if it's worse than the Atari one. It's really bad.
I would say it is.
We're talking ET. They made another game, did they? Or
Yeah, I think it was just called ET the Extraterrestrial, wasn't it, on PS1?
Yeah.
What?
Mhm.
why would you even touch
After
that?
one failed venture, why would you?
Every time you got a power up, it made like some pervy noise. You go.
Oh my god.
I would like to see, as a challenge, someone out there create an ET game that actually is fun to play. That would, I think it's doable. I think you can do it. I don't know if you'd want to buy the license. You'd be served with a cease and desist real quick. But it'd be interesting. Maybe, I don't know, first-person shooter or something.
E.T. Wow.
Anyway, we'll move along. But the answer to your question, I'll pick the car park. Thank you.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, we have to
Get
get
your head
battered.
panned in. I like that expression. he actually sent me a message later. Panned in means to get your head kicked in. I'm like, yeah, thanks, I've got it. Okay, so the next question is from one of my followers. This is another Brian. We'll put this up now.
Questions for your guests. What games have gotten easy for you over time while others have gotten harder? For me, Contra was the one that got easier over time, while Final Fight actually got harder. And I don't know what happens when I play this game constantly. I can break it past the first stage at the moment. But it is what it is. I say, so let me know what yours is. So I'd love to hear your answers.
I still agree with you. It's really hard to pick one. I mean, I'm going through my old Mega Drive collection, and I remember being really good and playing through them now. It's just really difficult. So like Comic Zone was the one I went back to, and I know it's a difficult game anyway, and you only get one life and stuff. But I used to be a lot better years ago. And we're talking like when I was 3 or 4, or even younger. I was better then than I am now. So yeah, it's really hard to pick one. You know, I haven't really got one. I don't know about anyone else.
Me, I mean, I'd have to say Call of Duty. I know it's a later generation sort of game, but I used to absolutely destroy when I was younger playing Call of Duty. And I go back and play it now, and I just get absolutely dominated.
You can't enter this conversation. You're not even old yet.
That's what I mean. Like it's not an older game, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I can't do it.
For me, Super Mario World on Super Nintendo, I used to blitz it. I've actually finished that game, maxed it out back when I was working at Sega, actually, ironically enough. And I've gone back to it later, and I just found it is super sensitive in some areas. You got to be really precise with the jumping on platforms, etc. And I don't know, just can't do it as easily as I used to. So, and there's quite a few games like this that come to mind. Wouldn't say Sonic. Sonic's not that hard. Sonic's you just go fast, you hit something.
I think with Sonic 2, the one where the water comes up, I struggle on that.
There's one section where someone posted on Twitter in Sonic, I think it was Sonic 2, there's a part where you got to go up in the water, and he was saying
I think that's a bit.
Yeah, and he said, this is the first time I've got to the top with my shield intact, ever. So there are hard parts in Sonic 2, but I don't think it's as hard as Super Mario World.
I think it's got the difficulty quite right. It's that if you want to replay it and do the special stages and stuff, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
But the normal levels are quite, you can get through them. So it's got replay value in that way. I think it's got the balance quite well with the special stages.
So I think the answer is yes, games do get harder as you get older. It's just
all of them.
Driver as well. Driver. That one.
I'm gonna say R-Type was a game that I used to play when I was younger that I'd be able to beat. But now if I go back and play, I can't even make it past like the first few stages without getting killed.
Ghouls and Ghosts is one.
Yeah, I've played that.
Especially Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I actually did that as a challenge when I first started doing my YouTube channel. and I didn't have a second controller to trigger off the level select, so I had to do it from the start every time. Thank God though that the Super Nintendo Mini came out, because it's just because that's part of that series. Yeah, having a save feature, and I think it comes back to that a lot of these games, they were hard, and you fought, I think, a little bit extra harder to get through them because they didn't have save points. You didn't have battery backup on most of these games, so you had to play them every time from scratch. And I think, I'm not trying to sound like, you know, an older gamer, get off my lawn type person here, but I think a lot of gamers are spoilt with battery save, and also more save points. They don't have to make it to the end of the level for it saves to that point.
Even auto save.
Sorry?
Even auto save. Just like, oh, we're going to save here
Yeah,
before I
you
have
don't
it.
even have to save now. It just automatically does it for you. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move along. I've got 2 more questions to go. One of the questions is not really a question. Alright, so this is from Foster's Family Gaming Channel.
Hi, Mark here from the Foster's Games Reviewers. Cheers, Brian. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Now, my question is, you're having a party, got a load of friends round, your prized possessions all on display. At the end of the night, everybody leaves, goes home. You wake up the next morning and one of your prized, most expensive games is missing. Who do you blame? Who do you point the finger at, and what would you do? That's my question.
What would you do? Well, what would you do? Has anyone had? I think that's probably not a fair thing to say. Who would you blame? Because you might get sued online here for pointing out people. But
well, for me, it would be Gaming Muso, just straight off the bat. I locked him in a cupboard recently for one of my videos, and he hasn't forgiven me since. So I gave him Wi-Fi. Like, he could still comment and like my video. I gave him that privilege. But, he hasn't forgiven me for.
I had actually touched on this in the past. I had Top Hat Gaming Man here, and one of the videos we did was gaming regrets, and one of the topics came up was about people stealing games in your collection, and I have had people steal. It was Golden Axe on the Mega Drive. Man, that was such a big loss at that time because it was such a big game. I still haven't got the cartridge back or the cover. That's gone. And they stole Alex Kidd in Enchanted Castle. Alex Kidd in Enchanted Castle. They stole those 2 items. And then since then I've been very careful of who I let in. I actually had to frisk Top Hat Gaming Man. He accused me of it not being because I was suspicious of him stealing anything. He thought it was for pervier reasons. What precautions would you take, I guess? Would you trust people to just go, do you get a little bit, anxious when people are around your collection? A bit protective?
Not really. I mean, you just trust the company. I've lent games out in the past and they've not returned them. I still haven't gotten them back from years ago. But that's just who you hang out with.
Want to name anyone here? No.
But well, Xbox actually tried to ban the second-hand games thing, didn't they? Like, you couldn't actually use it in another system, so that would prevent that sort of thing happening.
Oh yes, yeah, that would be a real success. That went down well, didn't it?
Well, that's how they could market it. I've just thought of this. It's just come to my mind. They could market it that no one can steal your games because no one else can play them.
Joe, have you ever had anyone steal any of your prized possessions?
I've not had anything stolen, but there was a time when I used to have a lot of mates around. They used to bring their own control pads, and they would take my nice, crisp, brand new ones home and leave their broken, cheesy
Cats,
puff
the Mad
stains.
Cats generic controller behind.
Yeah. And it's like, that annoys me, but I've not had anything stolen yet. But
but like I said, I have had a couple things stolen, and it really, I didn't know the guy actually. He was invited into my room because he was a friend of a friend, and I thought, well, if he's his friend, I can trust him. And it was like 2 days later that I realised something's not right. And I went through my collection and I was so livid because that was back in my Mega Pro Sega fanboy era, and yeah, to have someone steal any of my stuff back then, not on, totally not on. All right, last question that's not a question. This is from Cam Holmes. For those of you who don't know, Cam Holmes is the guy that created the outro music for Since Spacies. So it's not so much a question as it is more of a musical rant. Here we go.
Why is there a piranha plant in the next Super Smash Brothers game? It's driving me insane. It's driving me insane. Why is there a piranha plant in the next Super Smash Brothers game? It's driving me insane. It's driving me insane. Why is there a piranha plant? Nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for it. I'm tired of this shit. Why is there a piranha plant? Nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for it. I'm tired of this shit.
So I think his question that's not a question that is a question. What do you guys think of the Super Smash Bros. Announcement of Piranha? Is it Piranha Pete? Is that his actual name?
There's so many
It's a piranha plant, and then there's Petey the piranha, which is like a boss of. He's like the leader of the plants, but this one is just a piranha plant.
Right, so he's a generic nameless piranha plant who's got his own amiibo, has got his own fighter. Wow. You're the biggest Smash head, although I did beat you in that last video.
I'll let you win. I'll let you win.
No, there was definitely effort there, and it was piss poor. But
I don't know. I feel like there's so many other characters that they could have included in the new Super Smash Brothers, other than using the piranha plant. Like, there's a lot more memorable characters other than the piranha plant.
Name
they
one.
Could have included.
Name one.
The Koopa things. I mean, they could have included one of those instead.
Hammer Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is Waluigi in it? I don't think he's in it.
No.
Waluigi's another character that they could have included rather than
Everyone's.
the piranha plant.
There was a petition. There was a group of guys that went to PAX in Australia, Melbourne, dressed up as Waluigi, protesting. It actually made media. They were protesting against Waluigi not being included in Super Smash Bros.
It just, I don't know. I mean, I can sort of see why they've done it, but at the same token, like I don't know. There's a lot of other better characters that they could have included, and yeah, I don't know. I'm against it.
Sorax, you into Super Smash yourself, or?
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't that surprised. I wasn't as shocked as some other people were. So when you see the announcements, or not the announcements, the reaction videos. I know reaction videos, they're sort of made to overreact just to create an audience. Sorry, but that's what they do. And I don't know. I wasn't that surprised. I mean, they've got Mr. Game & Watch, the Game & Watch animation guy. He's in it. You've got Pac-Man. You've got Rob the Robot. You've got the Wii Fit trainer.
Boy and girl.
That's more ridiculous. Piranha Plant. So I don't know why. Everyone seemed to be really shocked about this, and I wasn't that bothered.
I think it's just a group of guys online that didn't get what they wanted, didn't get their way, so they're just having a bit of a rant. Sorry, Cameron, but yeah, having a bit of a hissy fit. Get over it. Enjoy the plant.
But, yeah, it wasn't just him. Everyone went crazy.
Yeah, I know.
And I know Waluigi isn't in it, which is a bit of a shock considering you've got Mario, Luigi, Wario. Why not Waluigi? I think because it created so much internet hysteria. I think they're playing on it, and if he won't be he might not be in the next one, just to keep the hysteria going, just for a laugh. Because that Sakurai guy seems to be a bit of a character. He's a bit of a troll on the internet, so he might. I
would have loved to have seen Banjo-Kazooie got announced. I think that's what a lot of people are crying out for. I would rather see Banjo-Kazooie get in before Waluigi. Yeah, that's why he's like a pinnacle part of the N64 library.
But
even Conker. Oh my god, Conker would be awesome. You guys aren't passionate about Super Smash, I think, though. Not really. You should be.
Oh, I am.
But you just don't have an opinion on this.
No, not necessarily.
Just bring it on. Or maybe a pixelated Mario. That would have been a cool.
I would like to see Plock. I want to see Plock in it.
Plock.
Yeah.
Well, okay. No character should be too obscure, and most people will be like, "What the is Plock?" Like, do you know Plock?
Nah.
All right, I'll explain it. So
Plock was Rayman before Rayman, basically.
Yeah,
okay.
So he's got detachable limbs, and
Right.
the art design is very similar to Yoshi Island, and it was considered very, very close at one stage to being the Yoshi Island, but they decided at the last minute to not follow up on that game, and they pulled the plug on that deal, and then Yoshi Island magically appeared afterwards. So maybe they got, I don't know, inspired by Plock. Music in that game is awesome. Have any of you got it?
I love
got
it.
Plock on the Super Nintendo, or have you played it?
It's funny, the developers actually live a couple of miles away from me. He's actually revitalised him on Twitter. The developers of the game has got like a comic, an online comic, but you can actually. Plock is still alive and well.
It would be that would be a cool reveal, Plock, and it would be just making people thinking, what the? Who is this character?
I think it'd be better than the Fire Plant.
He's got enough legs to carry his own character reveal on that system. My dad picked up a bag full of Super Nintendo games from a local op shop, second-hand store, a charity store, and Plock was one of the games that was in it. And yeah, it's the only criticism I've got for that game. It doesn't have battery save. There's no battery backup, so you have to keep starting from the scratch.
It's quite
I hate
hard.
those games.
That being one of them games where it's harder when you get older.
Sorry, it's harder as you get. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've come to the end. Thanks very much for being on the Since Spacies Show. Joe, what will you be doing in the next few weeks? Have you got any videos that you want to promote, or anything that is coming up on your radar? Any events?
Nothing particularly, but I think it's holiday time for me. Spending time with the missus and Red Dead Redemption 2, killing things.
In fact, we're holding him up now. He's wanting to get. Yeah, he's itching to get over to his game. So, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Just Twitter, basically. I'm thinking about starting my YouTube back up in the new year. I might do playing stuff like that piece of crap I showed earlier.
So you don't actually have a YouTube channel?
I've got a YouTube channel, but it is really, really bad.
Right,
it's the same as the Twitter
Where can we
handle.
find this really bad YouTube channel then, so we can judge for ourselves?
Just putting Retr0 Joe onto YouTube.
I'll put the link down below then.
Yeah.
Sorax Space. I got a sneaking suspicion I know what you're up to for your next couple of videos, but do you mind telling us?
Yeah, well, I'll probably do a pickups video very soon. I've picked up a few interesting games on the Game Boy and N64 and the Mega Drive, so I'll probably show them off in another pickups video. Yeah, as you touched on, there are collaboration videos in the works, including some.
We'll leave it at that. Okay.
Yeah, including some familiar faces. Some are in this video. Yes, that'll be coming out soon, hopefully. And other than that, yeah, I'll continue on with my Sorax Space reviews, which aren't really reviews. They're me taking as much of the mickey as I can out of games, extracting every little bit of jokes I can out of games, and then putting it into a video.
What was the egg?
That's
what was that chicken? What, Chicken Run? Was that the game that you?
No, not Chicken Run. Malt the Chicken was my latest one.
You really did try to milk as many egg, egg test. Yeah, you and I managed to find one that you didn't find, and I bet you that annoyed you.
What was that?
Oh, I sent it your way. I've forgotten it now, but I did send you a message, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that was one I didn't put in."
If you're new to my reviews, if you haven't seen my channel, I think you should always give one video a chance on every channel just to see if you're into it. And one of my favourite videos I've done is Sonic and the Secret Rings, which is one of my proudest videos. So if you haven't seen that and you haven't seen Sorax Space, give that a try and see if you like it. I think it's quite funny and well done. So give that a go.
And not the guy game.
No.
I would ask what you're doing, but you're just a bludger. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what bludger means, a slacker, a lazy guy. So
I'll just do whatever you tell me to do.
He doesn't have a YouTube channel. He's got 2 followers on Twitter. Guy, I'm going to put the link down below. Give him a couple of follows, guys. We want to prop this guy up. Before he started on this show, he didn't even have a avatar for his Twitter. So it was just the generic egg or whatever it is.
The silhouette or whatever it was.
Yeah, I said, come on, man, I can't promote your channel. Like, I can't promote you if you got nothing to promote. And on Since Spacies, I'll be trying to keep a few channels, a few videos coming out over the Christmas break. But over Christmas, it does get a little bit nutty with Christmas events and whatnot. But I will be doing a couple of videos, and the next video that I'm working on, I got to do 1983, my gaming, gaming Since Spacies series. So that's going to be about. I'm not going to focus on the gaming crash because it didn't really affect us here in Australia, but I will touch on it a bit. So that's the next video coming up in that series. But I've got Sonic and Knuckles coming up on the next Let's Play. So that's going to be an interesting look at that game. I think we will wrap this up. Thanks everyone for watching, and as always, my name's been Brian, and I've been gaming Since Spacies. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Since Spacies.